Hello friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Good to see you back. In this video, we'll learn the concept of virtual network peering, which is also known as vNet peering. So what we're going to do in this video, we'll take one scenario to understand why do we need virtual network peering configured between the virtual networks. So let's take a scenario and understand that. So assume there is one company with the name of company A. And within company A, we have two departments. The first one is sales department, and the second one is marketing department. And now IT admin is configuring vNet for both the departments. So assuming that IT admin is configuring vNet 01 in sales department with the IP range of 10.0.0.0/16, and within vNet 01 he is also creating a subnet with the name of subnet 01, and the subnet range is 10.0.0.0/24. Within subnet 01, he is also creating a virtual machine with the name of VM01, and the private IP address assigned to the virtual machine is 10.0.0.4. Similarly, he is also creating a virtual network in marketing department with the name of vnet02, and the IP range is 10.1.0.0/16. Within vnet02, he is also creating a subnet with the IP range of 10.1.0.0/24. Within subnet 02, IT admin has also deployed a VM with the name of VM02, and the IP address assigned is 10.1.0.4. Now, after this environment is configured, he has further deployed web server on VM02, and after the configuration is completed, he removed the public IP address from VM02, which means now we can only access VM02 by using the private IP address of VM02, which is 10.1.0.4. Now, the virtual network is acting like a logical boundary for the virtual machine, and any user who wants to access VM02 outside the virtual network will not be able to do that. On the other side, on VM01, we are assuming that we still have the public IP address assigned, and user sitting somewhere is trying to access the VM01 with the help of public IP address. Now, what we are assuming is that the sales user logged into VM01 by using the public IP address, and now the sales user wanted to access web server deployed on VM02. But the problem is that on VM02, we have already removed the public IP address, because of which the user who is sitting on VM01 will not be able to access the web server deployed on VM02 because we don't have any virtual network peering configured between both the virtual networks. Similarly, if any user is sitting on VM02, they will not be able to access resources deployed on VM01. Now, to overcome this issue, what we can do, we can configure vNet peering. So once we configure the vNet peering, which we need to configure between the virtual networks. So please ensure that you understand that the virtual network peering can only be configured between the virtual networks. We cannot configure virtual network peerings between the subnets or between the virtual machines. That's the reason we call it vNet peering, that is virtual network peering. So name itself says that the peering can only be configured between the virtual networks. So once IT admin configure virtual network peering between vNet 01 and vNet 02, after that sales users sitting on VM01 can access the, the web server which is deployed on VM02. Similarly, if any user is sitting on VM02 can access the web server deployed on VM01 by using the private IP address. Make sure that you understand that here we are only referring to the private IP address and not the public IP address. If vNet peering is not configured between these two virtual networks and we have public IP address assigned on VM02, then we can access the web server from anywhere, provided we have allowed the port in network security groups. So I hope you have understood the concept of vNet peering and why do we need vNet peering. Now the next part is to see all this in action. So now we'll see that how we can configure vNet peering between two virtual networks and try to access the web server deployed on VM02 by sitting on VM01. So let's see all this in action. As a prerequisite, we need to have two different vNets, and in each of the vNet, we are going to create a virtual machine. On the virtual machine, we are going to install web server, and then we'll see if we are able to communicate between these two virtual machines or not. So let's start. So first thing is we'll create a virtual machine. So click on create, click on Azure Virtual Machine. Now we don't have any resource group, so we'll create a new resource group with the name of RG01. Click on OK. We'll give name VM01. Now we'll create this in Australia East. No availability zone required. For OS, we'll go with Windows Server 2019. We'll stick to D2S V3 size. We'll give the user ID and password. Okay, we'll allow port RDP 3389 and port 80. Click on next. No changes to the disk. Click on next. In networking, we have we are going to create a new virtual network with the name of RG01 vNet, or let's rename that to vNet01. And we have the subnet with the name of default, so we'll change that to subnet 01 and click on OK. So no other changes. Click on next. Click on next. I'll disable the monitoring. We don't need this. No other changes. Click on review and create. Click on create. So in the meantime, we'll go back and we'll create a second virtual machine. And for that, we need to create a second vNet. So let's open the tab in new window. Create a virtual machine. Click on create Azure Virtual Machine. We'll use the same resource group that we have created. We'll name this VM02. Again, we're gonna create this in Australia East. No availability zone. We'll go with Windows Server 2019. Define the username. We'll again allow port 80 and 3389. Click on next. No changes to the disk. Click on next for the networking. Now we'll not be creating this virtual machine in the same vNet. So we're gonna create a new vNet with the name of vNet02. And here for the subnet, we'll name it subnet 2 and click on OK. No other changes. Click on next. For the monitoring, we are disabling the boot diagnostic because we don't need for this lab. Next, click on review and create. Click on create. Let's go back and check if the first VM is created or not. Yep, so first VM is created. Go to the resource and we can see the IP address, the public IP address of this virtual machine. So let's copy the virtual machine's public IP address, take remote, and then we will install web server on this server. Okay, so now we are logged into VM01. Let's open PowerShell and let's copy the code. So this is the code that we have. So we're going to use this code to install web server, and it will also create a web page with the name of index.html. So let's copy this and run this on VM01. It will take few minutes. So in the meantime, we'll go back to VM02 and install web server on VM02. Okay, so VM02 is also created. Let's go to the resource. Take the public IP address of VM02. Take a remote and install web server on this. Okay, so we are logged into VM02 and we have copied the code. So let's copy this code, open PowerShell on VM02 and install the web server. Now we can go back to VM01 and check the progress. Okay, so we have the web page created. So let's check by going to Edge. We'll go to localhost. Okay, so now we can see that the VM01 web page is created. We'll go back to VM02. We'll be back once web server is installed on VM02. Okay, so now we have web server role installed on VM02. Let's open the Edge browser to check. Okay, so we have checked the web server on VM01 and VM02. It is working fine. So now let's check the same from our local laptop and see if it's working or not. So I have copied the IP address of VM01. So let's try access that. Okay, it's working. Now let's check the IP address of VM02. Okay, so all this is working fine. Now what we need to check is that we can see that the web page of VM02 and VM01 is what we can access from our local laptop. But we need to check if from VM01 can we access the web page of VM02 by using the private IP address of VM02? So let's take the private IP address, which is 10.1.0.4. So this is the private IP address of VM02. So we'll copy this. We'll go to the VM01. So this is our VM01. Let's go to the browser and try to access the web page of VM02. So we are not able to access the web page of VM02 from VM01. Let's try doing the same thing for VM01. So now let me copy the private IP address of VM01 and we'll go to the VM02, open the PowerShell. Sorry, we'll go to the browser directly, try accessing the web page. So here also, we can see that we are not able to access the web page of VM01 from VM02. It is because the vNet pairing or the virtual network pairing is not configured between these two networks. The VM, all the resources in VM01 can be accessible over the internet, but by using the Microsoft's backbone network, we cannot access them. So now let's configure vNet pairing and see if after configuring vNet pairing, we can access the web pages of VM01 from VM02 and vice versa. Let's try that. So let's go to VM01 first. Go to the networking, go to vNet. In the virtual network, when we scroll down, we can see an option of pairings. So click on pairings. Here we don't see any pairing. So I'll show you the same for VM02 also. So here we are on VM02. We'll go to the virtual network, scroll down, go to the pairings. So here also we don't see any pairing because it is not configured. So let me go to VM01 and add a pairing. Click on add, give it a name. So I'm giving it a name vnet01 vnet02. So which means the pairing on vnet01 is from vnet01 to vnet02. And we are saying that traffic to remote virtual network is allowed. Traffic forwarded from remote virtual network is allowed. And virtual network gateway or the router server, it is not available. So it's none. Now, this is the remote virtual network, which means when we are creating a pairing, pairing needs to be created in both the virtual network, that is in vnet01 and vnet02. From one single console, we can create both the pairings. And that's the reason I have shown you the pairing in vnet0. It was not present. So here we don't see any vnet pairing because we haven't created any. From the single console, we can create a vnet pairing in both the vnets. So here I'm giving it a name vnet02-vnet01. Now here I need to select the subscription and the virtual network. So the virtual network is vnet02 with which we wanted to create the pairing. So no other changes required. So click on add. Now it is adding two vnet pairing. As I have mentioned earlier, one in the virtual vnet01 virtual network, and the second vnet pairing it is creating in virtual network vnet02. So let's go back to vnet02, refresh this and see now we can see that the vnet pairing is created and it is updating. So let's give it a few minutes and then we'll be back. Okay, so we are back now. When we refresh this, we can see that the vNet pairing is configured and it is connected. Let's try the same thing on vNet01. Let's refresh the console. Okay, so now we can see it is connected. Now to check the connectivity between vNet 01 and vNet 02, let's the go to vNet VM01. Try to access the web page of VM02. So here we can see that we are on VM01 and we can access the web server of VM02. Let's try doing the same thing from VM02. So here we are on VM02. Let's try accessing the web page of VM01. So here we can see that it's working. Okay, so as we are done with this lab, now I'm going and deleting all the resources that I have created. If you're following along, you can also delete the resources, or if you wanted to use it for some other lab, you can continue using it. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you like the video, please don't forget to like it, subscribe to the channel and share the video. Have fun, keep learning and enjoy. Thanks.